automotive is changing, and it's really a computer with some mechanic part attached to it.
You know, an ICE vehicle still got about 20,000 parts on it, and EVs still have about 12,000 parts, unique parts.
So one thing about automotive, it's like automotive is changing, and I often hear people talking about, it's like, well, it's really a computer with some mechanic part attached to it. And then you get into like electric vehicles and hybrids and other things where these are driven by computers. How is that impacting the automotive aftermarket? And
Yeah,
see it
in a couple of different places. I mean, definitely the computers are driving everything. The nice thing is the average car still has, an ICE vehicle still got about 20,000 parts on it, and EVs still have about 12,000 parts, unique parts. For anybody getting really specific, that's about the number.
But that's when you take it down to every washer and screw.
Right. We're not going to go down all that low, but it's a matter of kind of understanding that there's still a ton of parts with those computers, and then making sure that everyone has access. A lot of times the computer can kind of tell you what's wrong to a degree.
Yeah.
And so making sure that everybody has access to that. I know that's something that the associations fight for a lot. Is making sure that they can do that. But
have access to the data and the repair data, because if you don't have access to, I guess, the diagnostics and what the computer is telling you, it's like, how are you going to stand a chance of, like, is it actually something wrong, or is it the sensor? So I feel like I have repaired and replaced more sensors than anything else. So.
Tell me what's wrong. Well, the thing that's supposed to tell you what's wrong is the thing that's broken.
Yeah,
that happens a lot. But just getting access to that data is, I know, something that is constantly being fought for, because the computers, you can lock people out of them, and people don't always know who owns that data. At least who has access to that data, I should say, without being too specific.
Right. So outside of just the cars changing, then you got other players coming into it. Amazon, for example, and their supply chains. Like, who's benefiting from Amazon? Because obviously it's the same parts and manufacturers, and they're selling it different ways. So what's the buying experience like from?
Yeah, the nice thing about Amazon, if we're looking at the good and the bad, right? The nice thing about Amazon is that it's a consistent experience across the board. So a lot of it's I would imagine it's got more draw towards the DIY user, because they're sending it to their house. They can wait the 2 days. They can do these pieces. Automotive's even faster. Like, that's what I think that a lot of people overlook sometimes, is that automotive parts actually work at this, like, faster than Amazon in a lot of cases of getting parts to the right place, because of the 3-tiered model, right? There's usually distribution somewhere near, and there has to be, in order to get the parts there as quick as they can. But Amazon's definitely pushing people to make it a more consumer-centric experience online. E-commerce makes up, some numbers put it at half of part sales in one way or another. Because even your your repair shops are logging on and ordering it from somewhere, whether that be Amazon or any of the other large retailers in the space.
Right.
It's becoming more and more important. People aren't using paper catalog. It's hard to think that was something that someone would even think about, but it's not that far back that was being used. And, that having a seamless e-commerce experience is something that I think that Amazon pushed everybody towards and forced the industry to move that direction, which I'm appreciative personally, because I'm an e-commerce guy. But,
But it also depends on the category, right? So, yes, Amazon, certainly we can buy the various air filters and cabin air filters and windshield wipers. But when you get into like some of the parts, and it also depends on how much you do yourself. Like, are you daring to pull out a YouTube video and start messing and pulling doors apart and so forth? Like, talking from experience.
Back in the day.
Fun,
These days with the computers, it's even harder to even do that. But definitely though, if you think of windshield wipers, you think of even solvent and stuff, that the fluids that you're putting in your car. All of that can be pretty easily bought in a lot of different places. It's the more complex parts that bring in the more complex challenges of accessibility to those parts in the location that you want them.
Right, and then the various sensors and so forth, and that too. It's like, you can't just replace a bumper, you can't just replace a mirror anymore. You can't even replace the windshield because of the various parts that are attached to it, and sensors and whatnot. in the not just the complexity, but also price. When you're talking about a single headlight assembly costing, more than $5,000 for just one assembly. That's
gets
another thing that's
complex.
changing as well, for sure. So,
And yeah, the windshield's interesting because I actually recently cracked mine, as we all do, I suppose.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I just remember the old ads
Yeah.
where they're like, we'll come out to you. I'm like, that's great. And I call them, they're like, no, we can't. There's too many sensors. We need to be in a white room with all of the different things set up to recalibrate. Because once you change that, there's a ton of different sensors on newer vehicles that have to be recalibrated. You don't even think about it because you're like, it's a windshield, it's a piece of glass.
Right.
But everything's interconnected in a lot stronger way than I think you would anticipate.
Yeah. So the $200 windshield wiper replacement in the parking lot at work is not happening anymore, right?
Not as much. It's the older cars, they still can, but it seems to me anyway, the newer ones it's a much harder struggle to get the sensors and things recalibrated.
Right. So another reason to whatever the right to repair and so forth. So outside of regular automotive, maybe we can switch to the other types of automotive. There's on the heavy duty side.
Yeah.
Do you have what have you seen especially unique on the heavy duty side?
Yeah, heavy duty's particularly unique in the aspect of they make up a smaller percentage of the number of vehicles on the road, but the parts are just by nature bigger, and so moving them around is a bigger challenge. They don't really have necessarily a ton more parts than a car; they're just bigger. They have a few more, but not a huge number. And so because of that, the transportation costs of getting things right, the data is even more important in a space that is admittedly lagging a bit to get the data in front of people.
Right.
I mean, I know it's something that because a lot of heavy duty vehicles are built to spec, they can look exactly the same on the outside and they're actually quite different on the inside. And that's unique in that space because a lot of cars, you log on, you've got 3 different trim levels to choose from, and you kind of move on.
Yeah.
And heavy duty, there's a lot more customization that can and does go into it. So it's harder to just, plug in the information and say, well, this belongs here because of this.
Yeah.
You have to really draw it back and figure out the exact pieces that are in there. So it's an even more complex data model, even though it's technically a smaller subset of the vehicles, but they're also driven a lot more. I mean, heavy duty vehicles are on the road, they're moving things constantly. So the need for, the more it gets used, the more it breaks. That's the nature of parts.
Yeah.
And so they break more often because of that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the data is even harder to get to in some cases.
And it's also the aspect of light duty and regular cars. Like, if it's broken down, you will find other ways to get to where you need to go to. Whereas if you have a heavy duty truck that is breaking down somewhere, it's like, ooh, that's transporting something. And how do you recover from that? It's refrigerated and so forth. There's all kinds of complexity in the impact of a heavy duty vehicle being stranded somewhere, something not working. The commercial impact of that is very, very different than, inconvenience. You don't have to take an Uber. It sounds like you take Ubers most places anyway.
Yeah, living in Chicago makes that easy.
Yeah. So, but there's that aspect of it. So the reliability and also predictability of what repairs and so forth. It's not like these things are not falling out of the air if you miss maintenance, but equivalently you can be stranded out where there's no access to repair or parts.
Yeah, because I mean, a lot of these big vehicles, when you're transporting, they're not usually transporting in the city all of the time, right? So they are out there in the middle of nowhere sometimes, and they've got to get access. And if we go all the way back to the implications of getting the wrong piece of clothing or shoes or something, it's lower than missing the right part for a light duty vehicle, but that's even lower than missing the right part for a heavy duty vehicle because now you're dealing with that thing could potentially have all of the clothing that was ordered in the beginning of the train. And so it's kind of an interesting concept to think about how it's all very circular in the way that all moves.